Welcome Dushni and Nisha also from IPS. Um, Today's what announcements? No announcements, no? We have asked Ministry of Finance to come at 3 to give us the final timeline, responsibilities and persons at 3 o'clock. I mentioned in the House this morning that we have given them one more opportunity. So let us hope that they come with a reasonable timeline for this. No, not Indian Revenue today, Honorable Raghavan, because we are unable, we didn't have the... So we can do it. We are meeting on the 13th or 14th, no?
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, so that is why I wanted to give them some time.
You can give them, then work on that.
Yeah, and also we have now started, we have a schedule now. From January, we will have regular meetings. And that way we can assign various issues. Would you be kind enough to introduce yourself for the record, please?
Dushni Verakon, Executive Director, Institute of Policy Studies.
Nisha Arunadilaka, Director of Research, Institute of Policy Studies.
So, business of the day, report of the Committee on Public Finance on Appropriation Bill for the financial year 2023 in terms of Standing Order 121.5, 2 of Parliament. Right. So this is the report that looks at the government policies and sort of look at how monies have been allocated, prioritized based on the policy. So we had a sort of a challenge at the beginning because we did not know exactly what the policy is. Previously we had the President Gotabaya Rajapaksa's policy, but we used the budget, right, to sort of assess where President Wickremesinghe is planning to spend most of his money in, other than interest. And based on that, IPS has produced this report. So what we would like Dushni and Nisha to do is to make a presentation, and we could, presentation in the sense you can just go through, and then we can, not necessarily a new presentation, what you have, and then we can hopefully engage with you, and if there are any amendments that we require, we can do it, and we will submit this actually on Thursday. Thank you.
Sorry, I didn't get a hard copy. I thought there will be a... Yes, please. I'll give it back before I go. Yeah. Thank you. You take on the sector. Just on the change in policy direction, I think that was discussed at that previous meeting. We looked at the interim budget that was presented in August and the other second annual 2023 budget presented in November. What we did identify is that there is a departure in terms of the emphasis from the vistas of prosperity and splendor. There is leaving the macro stabilization issues aside, which we have to get under control one way or the other. Emphasis repeatedly that it's going to be an export-led growth model based on social market concept and competitiveness and efficiency driven through certain set of reforms. Particularly, the budget has identified labor market reforms, land market reforms. But in terms of and of course an emphasis on environment and climate change, but in terms of the allocation of the budget spending along these lines, we were not able to take the entirety of the appropriation bill and see how it's been split up and compare it to the previous allocation, and then validate that there has been a shift in spending priorities for two reasons. One is the 2022 appropriation bill had a huge chunk that was set aside for debt servicing. And even when we subtracted that from the finance ministry allocation, the numbers didn't sort of match the finance ministry spending for last 2022 and the 2023. So the debt repayments must have been here and there, and we had no way of breaking it up.
Can we ask questions?
Yeah.
But then debt repayments are not put in, it's just under the Ministry of Finance, no? That's the whole chunk? It is not.
Yes, but if you would subtract that debt allocation from the total finance ministry allocation for previous year, and then look at the finance ministry allocation for 2023, there's a huge increase this year.
The debt, you mean?
The allocation for the finance ministry. So I think the finance ministry may have to clarify, because the finance ministry also, there were state ministry for capital market development, there were 2-3 state ministries that was
but that had no money.
No, they had some allocations.
Yes.
Then
No, that's a different ministry.
It's a separate ministry.
It comes under the president, but the president has 3 or 4 ministries.
No, Ministry of
So when you asked this particular question from the Ministry of Finance, what was the answer they gave?
we didn't ask, because we looked at the appropriation bill and 2022 and this year.
Okay.
So even though the appropriation bill had set aside that interest payments, we would not have paid, I think. That, but in this year also there may have been some interest payments, domestic interest payments that were in the appropriation bill, but not external debt repayments. So reconciling the finance ministry allocation for 2022 and 2023, I think the finance ministry will be best positioned to explain how it was done.
Now you asked them for data, and they did give you the data that you asked for.
Yes,
right?
that was on the sector allocation. Yeah, they were very forthcoming with the data.
External debt repayments have been stopped.
Yes.
Until they reached agreement with the IMF.
Yes.
So in that scenario, do they want to have a set aside separate amount to be paid, repay the debt?
They would have set aside for domestic debt repayments anyway.
Yes.
Actually, the assumption is we sort of did that in the first report, is that till 30th June, they have not allocated any repayments on Eurobonds, or rather, foreign debt outside of the multilateral debt servicing. But what they are saying is from 1st of July to end of the year, they plan to pay 50%. So they are expecting a 50% haircut. So based on that is what they have allocated money for. Now if you look at the interest on that 200 billion has been allocated for foreign interest. 200 billion, that's all. As opposed to domestic debt interest is 2,000 million, 2 trillion. So that's a big assumption to make. So, no, I mean, we will ask you after this what your thinking is, whether the elephant in the room has to be, sort of, we have to address that, which is debt.
Is there any other alternative that you could think of?
For the
Reallocation of some certain government expenses, at least to propose?
sorry, I didn't.
No. Do you have any other alternative way of reallocating the finances?
No. I mean,
It is
if you
tight,
look,
isn't it?
Hmm?
It's very tight.
it's very tight, because even when we look at whether the budget spending is in line with government proposals,
Yeah.
most of the proposals are reforms or setting up
Yeah,
committees
50
to
million,
study.
100 million.
100 million here, setting up a medical faculty there. So there is no spending shift. And I think partly the problem is there is no money for any additional programs to have been initiated and got going. So they are essentially just...
Basically a crisis kind
Yes,
of budget.
you are basically covering salaries and all of those of the various departments that are coming under each of these ministries. So even one of the, we tried to map the ministries to the previous ministries, but again, if you look at, say, Ministry of Technology Development, Ministry of Investment Promotion, which just set up new ministry, there seems to be a huge allocation. But when you really look behind the number, it is because the Department of Immigration has been shifted from one other ministry previously into this. Not that additional spending has been set aside apart from 200 million for. So
I listened to the President's keynote at the Chamber of Commerce Economic Summit yesterday. He basically said he has no plan for reform, and everybody sort of fell off their chairs.
No.
Yeah, he said that is the headline in the FT this morning. He said, I have no plan for reform, neither does the government. So everybody was shocked and they were all looking at him, 500 people there. And he said, well, that's it. And we have to build a new economy. So this is his exact words. So, I mean, I don't know.
he has a committee on economic stabilization, reforms and promotion of growth working from the Presidential Secretariat, where certain short-term reforms for stabilization and more medium-term reforms have been, IPS is also part of that committee. We are to draw up some of those reforms and action plans to follow through. So I don't know why he said there is no attempt to...
I mean, give us a summary. Now you have the report, no, Dushni,
Yeah.
we can go through it.
Yeah.
But what is the summary? I mean, as, advisors to government, IPS, and being part of, member of the committee that you also mentioned just now. I mean, where are we going? Where is Sri Lanka headed in 2023? The money that has been allocated, the way you have analyzed, how much of it will actually materialize? Is this meaningful?
My sense is, given the lack of resources, this is just covering your basics, just to keep the government machinery running. And even there, I think whether we will arrive at the revenue figures, a lot of doubts. If your economy is contracting so sharply, revenue is automatically impacted. But leaving aside these measures are you're squeezing demand in the economy, whether it's monetary policy or fiscal policy or the exchange rate devaluation, which jacks up prices. So essentially, when you look at the recovery process from a crisis of this sort, there's enough literature that is now being written. At best, you will see 2 years of your per capita GDP contracting. And at worst, it might be 5 years. And
5
before you
years.
start trending up again, but again, whether you will actually, catch up to what your trend growth would have been, if not for the crisis, there is a doubt. Because what they say is for emerging markets like ours, when you have a severe downturn, a prolonged downturn, you can have permanent output losses. You will not return to trend growth. You will just, grow below that.
I mean,
right?
that's the point that I want to get to. But before that, you had a question.
I'm no economist, everybody knows that. So I think I'm trending into areas where short-hair economists, long-hair economists, and bald-headed economists are there. So I had to be careful. I have a very layman question. Chairman, I think unplanned referred to this as a report 3 times. And I think it's a report. It's not an analysis. Right? For me, because the 74 pages have shown us the percentages where it has gone. So it's basically rearranging the numbers into a more neatly manner. That's what I see. But I expected, now you may say you are a think tank and you don't have a mandate, but we are living in a crisis, global crisis, which has become national crisis. Because of our own political fault, we have made that crisis an existential issue now. So I don't think anymore anyone can define, say, I am think tank, you are advocacy. I do understand that. Aragale should have come from you all, because you are trained to see the horizons before all of us, at least the economic horizon. I would have much respected and marched with you if you had said that this country is going to disaster. Not just in your fine-tuned 9-point font reports, but publicly in Sinhala in media. But you may be not wanting to do that. Then we had this whole issue. Now we are post-Aragale, we are trying to look at. I didn't see any of the recommendations, madam. For instance, 14.8% of the total budget is for what? For military. Now, should we not question this or not? Who should question? Is the street three-wheeler guy, or you should question? Or your institute should question this? Then we have public administration. Nobody in this country, except for those who are sitting in their positions, are happy about public services delivery. We all know this. But 23.4% is allocated for that. So what are we doing? Are we going to reform this, or we are going to continue? So total recurrence is 2.4 trillion and capital is 1.2. So we are at least about 33% we are spending for whatever the capital, and we are another 66% just to maintain this broken machinery. I would suggest that you all really tell this nation, because I have so much of respect for your agency, for Dr. Saman Kalambaga, his father, and you all have to speak up now. It's enough. We had our academic discipline of not speaking of things that we don't know. Now I am breaking that. I don't know economics. I come from a political background, so I am saying this is going to be even more disaster. For instance, Samurdhi, right? 28,000 Samurdhi workers are there full-time distributing 1.3 billion rupees annually. All those Samurdhi workers, 95% of them are political appointees. They are the ground root poster pasting people for politicians in this country. Most of them. Shouldn't we speak about that? My opinion, sir. Do I have the right to be wrong, sir?
Yeah, you
Okay.
can be, but
Can I finish then, sir?
yeah, please.
I have the right to be wrong, no? This is my experience. And that is why I am a nationalist MP, Ping Mantri. And I am not going to contest election next time, because I want to at least be conscious to what I am trying to do. So if I say, this will be the respond. But if you say, it has more authenticity, right? What are we doing with this? Samurdhi has become a political campaign. people who are in Samruddhi, they say 60% are unqualified, but they are somehow in, and then politicians come and say, we will increase Samruddhi more. මේ පිළිබඳව කතා කිරීමේ අයිතිය සාරධර්ම හා බුද්ධියම අයිතිය තියෙන්නේ උගලන්ට. විශේෂයෙන් රජයේ ඒජන්සියක් නිසා. ඒක නිසා තමයි mantri.lk සහ අනිත් අය කතා කරන දේවල් ජනයා දැන් කියන්නේ මෙච්චර දෙයක් අපි දැනගෙන හිටියේ නැහනේ කියලා. So my suggestion, I can't propose anything to you. My suggestion to you is that you try to, we will support you in the parliament, and I certainly will support. If you are only saying you are a policy tank, try to also be a voice. If that needs to be some changes of your term of reference, we'll try to do that. Only one more thing I would say, focus on sustainable revenue. Now I have been asking with the chair, how is tax department is going to collect this so-called revenue? No plan whatsoever. If you were here, you would have, last time when they came, they said they couldn't collect the 290 billion VAT tax given by the consumer to the government, outstanding still, because they didn't have petrol, their computers were broken, they had COVID. Next year, August also, they may come and say the same thing, madam. So this nation will again go through the same cycle. So how are we going to assure this revenue? What are the plan Bs? If the Ukraine war continues, some calamity happens somewhere, do we have a plan B? Then the design of the revenue. Right now it's taxing. Even export services 30% taxing. කරන්න පුළුවන් ලේසිම වැඩේ tax ගහන එකනේ. ඒක තමයි දැන් කරලා තියෙන්නේ. But is that design justified in economically? Is there any other? Then of course implementing of the actual collecting of the revenue and making sure it's profit parking, it's converting. Now yesterday they told us they just thought apparel industries 45% is expenditure, balance 55% should be converted. IT sector, which is 1.1 billion last year, of course, chairman contests that figures, but they have given no need of conversion anything. So මේ වගේ ඇලිමිලිටිස් තියෙනකොට මම හිතන්නේ අපිට දේශපාලනය කරන්න හම්බෙන්නේ නැහැ. සහ රාජ්‍ය ගෙනියන්න බැරි වෙනවනේ. So I would urge, really suggest that you have at least within you have a team of people who would say these are the important things. Elasticity, the annual percentage division, if you talk. I know you have done some mentioning there, but there were no proper, because it's a report, it's not an analysis. So my appeal is that. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. I mean, their TOR, honorable member, is to assess whether the allocation of money aligns with the government of Sri Lanka policy. That's all, right? So what Dushni is saying is, this is a reform-oriented budget, right? And he talks about productivity improvements, efficiency improvements. He talks about reforming the labor market, reforming the capital market. He talks about removing the para-tariffs, sort of, creating an efficient enterprise. Now, those, I don't know whether they can assess based on monies allocated, because, for instance, the reform in the electricity sector is not going to, we don't have to spend money on that reform. It's just a political decision. But if that political decision is taken, we will be up by about 450 billion rupees in the revenue number next year, right? So there is no allocation of funds except for 50 million, 100 million to set up these committees, etc. Yeah. So, I mean, that is what I'm asking. So, while we appreciate your questions and, his point, I think this is something I also have been asking the IPS, not today, like for 10, 15 years I've been asking this question. Is IPS has a lot of rich resources, you have really good people, and you produce some excellent reports. Now, you stop at that, and the advocacy, like he's comparing with mantri.lk and others, that is not, what you say is not part of your mandate, right? So to that extent, in fact, I invited IPS to be a part of a sort of a larger group, but they declined because they said that was not their sort of focus. Yes.
The Chairman, I mean, we are not outright advocacy in the sense, you can talk about reforms from ideological point of view. What we want to do is base whatever recommendations we give to the government on evidence of good quality research. Having said that, it is not that we shy away from working and advising, but we feel because of being a semi-government organization which work with different governments every 3, 4, 5 years, that a different model works better for us in terms of a more a quieter approach. And if you look at the number of committees through which our researchers sit and provide those policy inputs, we have had inputs in all sectors, into the education sector, into environment sector, into climate change, all the national climate adaptation policy of the of the Ministry of Environment we've done their cooling policy now, on migration. All of those policy documents are in some form or the other with inputs from us. And if even from 2013, if you look at our annual Sri Lanka State of the Economy, we had explicitly said from 2019 we are having a bunching up of external debt. How are we going to start repaying this without getting into a crisis if there is an external shock? And repeatedly from 2013 onwards, if you pick up our State of the Economy, I can give it to you, there is continuation of that same highlighting the probability of us coming to an exact crisis of this nature. So not only having written, we have, I'm also on panels, my colleagues are, we do, but not in the same confrontational fashion, I would say, because that can be counterproductive when you work with governments, I think. A quieter approach works. And if sometimes the government does not like what you are saying and it is not to their line of thinking, we are also asked to leave certain positions. So we can give advice. If they don't want to listen to that, we are asked to resign. So
I think we get your point. I mean, to be fair by Dushni also, they removed her from the monetary board, for instance. I don't know whether that is what she meant or not. But, we had a person of her caliber sitting in the monetary board. We were extremely happy that she was a member of that board. And if, with her vast experience, she would very likely not have agreed with some of the decisions that were made. But because the government of the day didn't want that input, she was removed in less than 2 years into her term. Well, how long did you serve? Less than 1 year into her term, right? So I do appreciate what she's saying, but that has been their style, not even, even from Saman's time, Saman always had a sort of a below the radar approach, right? But the State of the Economy this time is absolutely excellent. And it took on the SDGs and it addressed the SDGs, SDG by SDG, right? And they had a really thorough sort of input there. In fact, I called and said that, or I sent you a text message or something like that. So,
Mr. Chairman, that we also do read their reports. Even the recent one is very good. But in your own way, you have said what you have to say. So as a research organization, they have a typical way of saying things. And the government has to take those into consideration. Because government is elected by the people.
I want to make a suggestion. I don't know whether the government would listen to this. Why don't we, debate the State of the Economy report in Parliament?
Parliament, yes, that's a good thing.
It has not happened before. We debate the government's finance minister report. We debate other things. We allocate time for various things.
Not this.
Not this. And if we can have a day's debate on the state of the economy report, I mean, if you gentlemen think that's worthy,
The idea that we also think of central bank and various other
we do that, no?
institutions. No, I mean, so are we going to have the IPS on the same platform? Unless we put all these reports together and have one debate.
Then we will have to get central bank report, their report, everything together.
But the central bank reports get debated, no, the fiscal management report gets debated.
Yes.
But they are all brought by the government. There is nothing that we debate in the House, Honorable Member, as you know, that is coming from any sort of at least quasi, partly independent agency. So, and whether there is value in that.
I don't think that we should take IPS along.
They don't like it, no? I mean, what I heard from her with respect to
I
her,
also am,
I think if we fall into, now we are going away from this report, I think this report, that's all I have been able to absorb, that's all, that's the value of the report for me, not beyond anything else, because, so if you decide to remain what you are, then we can't force you. That's our fate and your fate as well. Okay? But may I suggest that we need to look at another agency then, that you become like the think tank, as you are happy and comfortable with, but you are, may I say, resigned to. And then we need another body that would tell the politician, tell the citizens how to select their politicians according to the way we need advocacy body. And that advocacy body need to be also funded by the government, not by some NGO. Because the NGOs have their own age. So if a state making, Rajya Nirmani කියන එක, ආණ්ඩු හදන එක නෙමෙයි. රාජ්‍ය නිර්මාණයට අවශ්‍ය නම් critical thinking අවශ්‍යයි රාජ්‍ය ගැනම රජයට. ඉතින් එහෙනම් අපිට වෙනවා මෙග්ලන්ගේ limitations TRO term of reference and mandate එක එහෙම තියාගෙන I suggest that we take serious, I'm recommending to this committee that we think about another economic activist advocacy body.
ඒකට තමයි අපි පාර්ලිමේන්ටරි බජට් ඔෆිස් එකක් හදන්නේ. ඒ පාර්ලිමේන්ටරි බජට් ඔෆිස් එකේ මේ පක්ෂ දේශපාලනයක් නැහැ. ස්වාධීනව අදහස් විශ්ලේෂණය කරලා ඉදිරිපත් කරන තමයි උත්සාහය තියෙන්නේ. දැන් අපි ගත්තොත් ගොඩක් රටවල් වල මම හොඳ උදාහරණයක් දෙන්නම්. ඇමරිකාවේ ගත්තොත් හරි the heritage institute එකක් වගේ එකක් ගත්තොත් හරි ඒක සම්පූර්ණයෙන්ම democratic party එක නම් මේ budget එක ඉදිරිපත් කරන්නේ heritage එක ඒක සම්පූර්ණයෙන්ම මේ critically evaluate කරලා ඒක ඉදිරිපත් කරනවා. හරි. ඉතින් අපිට මේ පළවෙනි step එක හැටියට ගරු මන්ත්‍රීතුමා අපි independent budget office එක හදනවා. හරි. ඒක හරහා අපි බලමු කොහොමද කියලා මේ ස්වාධීන මේ විශ්ලේෂණයක් ඉදිරිපත් කරන්න. ඉතින් ඒක කොච්චර දුරට ඇඩ්වොකසි කරන්න පුළුවන් වේද කියලා මම දන්නේ නැහැ. නමුත් මම උත්සාහ කරා, දිගටම උත්සාහ කරනවා පාර්ලිමේන්තු මන්ත්‍රීවරු සියලු දෙනාටම රජයේ ඉදිරිපත් කරන මේ ප්‍රතිපත්ති යම්කිසි විදියකට ධනාත්මකව මේ මොකද්ද ධනාත්මකව මේ what do you call criticism ධනාත්මකව විවේචනයක් ඉදිරිපත් කරන්න මේ අපි පටන් ගත්තා සෙෂන්ස් වගේ. ඔබ IPS එකත් ඇවිල්ලා එක සෙෂන් එකක් කරා මේ බජට් එකට කලින් නේ අර මේ වෝටර් සර්ච් එකේ ඔගොල්ලෝ කරේ නෑ මේ so we got other people to come and do so for the MPs to get a sense of what the other side of the coin is. So එහෙම තමයි ඉතින් අපිට පටන් ගන්න වෙන්නේ මන්ත්‍රීතුමා. අලුත් තව ආයතනයක් අපිට නිර්මාණය කරන්න හැකියාවක් නැහැ ඉන්ඩිපෙන්ඩන්ට් බජට් ඔෆිස් එක ඇරුණාම. Okay. Yeah.
You all are experienced politicians who have been before me parliament, sir. I am only a PIM mantri here. I can only make suggestions.
No, don't say that. Don't say that. I mean, don't say that because everybody who comes here is an MP. Whether you come on the national list or whether you come from Min area or Colombo West, it doesn't really matter.
You have something to say?
Yeah.
No, I mean, on this particular report, we were not asked to make recommendations. Because for education, health spending, we can make recommendations. How government budget spending should be, cut from defense and put into social sector spending. As economists, I think we would all agree there is a need to allocate whatever fiscal resources we have, and out of this report, those recommendations are there in all the work that we do. But in this terms of reference is very different.
Yeah, it is different, Honourable Member. Right,
Yeah.
please, sir, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to very broadly, you asked whether reallocating the funds. So if you look at page 8 and page 13, so page 8 is the implied policy direction of the government. Actually, they are quite good, because if we go as usual, just
That
managing...
is table 1, is it table 1?
Table, yeah, I think, yes, table 1, but page 8.
Yeah.
If you go on as we are just managing, growth is going to get affected. So if we want to grow and improve revenue also, we need to take on some of these policies suggested by the government themselves. But if you look in page 13, where the budget allocations are going, for example, I'll just give you some examples. Digital technology, only 0.5% of the allocations are going for that. And if for labor reforms, I think if you want to improve the productivity, get more high-tech industries, you need to have skilled workers. So you need to invest in that, but only 0.2% of the expenditure. So these are, I realize
the
that
least
there is
investment is 0.1% for environment, which is on one page it talks about environment, and out of the 0.1%, 70% are recurring. That means padi ගෙවන එක.
Yeah, yeah.
ඊට පස්සේ තව තැනක කතා කරනවා වෙනම එකක් environment එකේ importance ගැන. So I think
So,
මෙතන තියෙන මේ
if you look at, there is, education gets 3.9, health 4.5. That mainly because of the salaries that's been.
ඒ දැන් මෙහෙමනේ දැන් මේ
මෙතන ප්‍රශ්නේ තියෙන්නේ මේ අපි කතා කරන කාරණේ කැලේ දෙකක් වෙනවා. පළවෙනි එක තමයි ඕනම ආණ්ඩුවක් බලයටපත් වුණාම මේ ආණ්ඩුවේ ප්‍රතිපත්ති මූලෝපායන් වලට අනුව තමයි සල්ලි වෙන් කරන්නේ. දෙවෙනි එක තමයි දැන් මේ අපි කතා කරන එක සාමාන්‍ය අයවැය තත්ත්වයක් නෙමෙයි. මේක සුවිශේෂ වූ කාරණයක්. එතකොට මේකේ මම හිතන්නේ ඔය කියන අයවැයක් නෑ. හරිද? crisis management exercise එකක් කරලා තියෙනවා. දැන් අපේ බජට් ඔෆිස් එක ආපුවාම සභාපතිතුමා මේ කියන කාරණා බජට් එක හදන්න ඉස්සෙල්ලා මේ priority areas අපිට identify කරලා ආණ්ඩුවට කියන්න පුළුවන්.
ඊළඟ කාරණේ තමයි සභාපතිතුමා මේක දීර්ඝ කාලීනයිනේ. අධ්‍යාපන ප්‍රතිසංස්කරණුනේ නැති හන්දා අපේ රාජ්‍ය සේවය අපි
Can I?
please.
yes.
So if you, the thing is, if you have plans for these sectors, at the moment, you can get funds from donors, but you need to have a plan. Because, donors won't come if you don't have a plan and projects. You have to show that this is something that we want to do, we need to get funds for. Now, ADB is funding in the education sector, but we are, I don't think, using it to the fullest. World Bank is ready to fund, especially in the social sector. And there is a lot of places where we get funds from for ICT development. There are new sources of fund. Actually, the reason we have just produced a report that talks about those kind of funds. We need to be prepared. So those are the things maybe.
Since you mentioned funds and you also mentioned the word education, we have about 6 projects that are going on by foreign funded projects. But the problem is MOUs are signed between those funders from some part of the education ministry, and they become on their own. Even the workers who work for the projects don't call themselves as Ministry of Education. They say we are funded from the foreign, but it's a loan. So I think last 2 years we decided we will not go for new loans.
So this is policy coordination.
Exactly.
We have a huge problem with policy coordination. Right? And that has been identified in the growth diagnostic study as one of the 3 biggest issues that we have.
Yeah.
Right? But then that never got implemented.
Now, President's concept of this international environmental monitoring research I'm in the committee now. MDB, Multilateral Development Bank, has about 30 billion fund. So we could bring that. What happens is we need to really find out, that of course is a different kettle of fish altogether because it's a different institute. These World Bank and ADB and Kuwait Fund and all that. Almost disastrous, I would say.
So shall we now? I mean, because it's very sort of we are in a very bad place now. We have to understand that we hardly have any money for anything. Right? So how that meager resources that we have.
That's what I'm saying. So if we take that, accept that, and we go into a vicious cycle. So the way to come out of it is actually invest in at least some of the sectors which will improve productivity and get us out, like help growth.
I mean, I agree with you 100% because total factor productivity, is what we really need to look at. I mean, unless we improve the way we do things, so we increase productivity, right? Where are we going to get the growth?
Chair, with your permission, I think it's yesterday we met and then you gave me a metaphor, which I used without your permission in another evening discussion.
Yes.
How do we fill this bucket?
Yes.
That's the key important thing they should be asking now. We have an absolute forex crisis here. So we need to look at how to refill that, whatever the ways. After that we can say this is education, this is the defense, this is samruddhi. But now we are all suddenly talking about I need this much. But the bigger picture of filling this empty basket now is the issue. I think you really raised that issue today. I used with some junior bankers who met me. And,
So the issue is, if you really look at it from an economics point of view, forget everything else. I mean, unless we are efficient, we cannot compete. I mean, that's the bottom line. That's the bottom line. So, I mean, if we can't compete, we can't win.
අපේ revenue plan එක මොකද්ද? අපි හිතමු උදාහරණයක් වශයෙන් යුක්‍රේන යුද්ධය ඔය ගානටම යනවායි කියලා. මේසි දැන් කියනවා මේසි ඉතලකින් ඉවර වෙයි.
මෙහෙමයි. ඒක මේ ගරු මන්ත්‍රීතුමා
කොහොමද අපේ ඉන්කම් එක මොකක්ද කියලා කියන්නේ?
ඒක IPS
නෑ මම කියන්නේ මේගොල්ලන් කොටසක් ඇට.
යා.
මේගොල්ලන්ගේ මම කියන්නේ මේගොල්ලන්ගේ වගකීම කියලා.
ඒක අපි කියන්න ඕන. හරිද? ඒක මෙහෙමයි ඒක ගොඩාක් complicated function එකක්. හරිද? government revenue එක variable 50%ක් මත තීරණය වෙන එකක්. ඒක අපි කාටවත් බෑ. අපිට නිකන් දලා අදහසක් විතරයි. දැන් අපි හිතමු ඔය අපි tax reform එක ගෙනාවා. We don't know whether we will be able to collect.
ඔතුමා කියන්නේ එතකොට තබවරු තුනකුත් අපි දන්නේ නැහැ. ආර්ථිකය විදේශ ආර්ථිකය මොනවා වුණත් දේශීය ආර්ථිකයත් අපි තවමත් අඳුරේ අතපත ගගා තමයි යන්නේ.
මම එක උදාහරණයක් දෙන්නද ගරු මන්ත්‍රීතුමා. දැන් CB එකයි CPC එකයි විශාල losses තියෙනවානේ.
ඔව්.
ඒ losses අපි ඒවට ගෙවන්න අපි ජනතාවගේ බදු මුදල් හෝ මේ ණය ගන්න එපා.
ඔව්.
දැන් රජයේ උත්සාහය තමයි ඒක අවම කරන්න. එහෙම නැත්නම් ඒක නැති කරන්න. හරි CPC එකටයි CEB එකටයි cost recovery pricing mechanism එකක් ඉදිරිපත් කරන්න. එතකොට මේ බකට් එකෙන් එළියට යන ප්‍රමාණය අඩු වෙනවා. එතකොට යම්කිසි ප්‍රමාණයක් ඉතුරු වෙනවා. ඉතින් ඒක අපිට පුළුවන් පාවිච්චි කරන්න අධ්‍යාපනයේට සෞඛ්‍යයට යනාදී වශයෙන්. එතකොට දැන් ඒක තමයි revenue raising oils reducing the expenditure කියන එක මේට address වෙන්නේ. අවසානයේදී අපිට අවශ්‍ය වෙන්නේ revenue raising එක විතරක් නෙමෙයි. budget එකේ gap එක මොකක්ද කියන එක. හරි? So that is why immaterial of which political party we belong to, we have to support the reform process. Without supporting the reform process, අපි මේ රට ඇත්තටම අගාධයටම යයි.
මේක මෙහෙමයි දැන් මේ කියන සමහර තීරණ දේශපාලන වශයෙන් අතිශයින් සංවේදීව.
ඔව්.
හරිද? ඒවා ගනිද්දී ආණ්ඩු කල්පනා කරන විදියක් තියෙනවා. පෞද්ගලිකව අපි කල්පනා කරන විදියක් තියෙනවා. මේ දෙක අතර දෝලණය වීම තමයි අවුරුදු 74ම සිද්ධ වුණේ. දැන් උදාහරණයක් විදිහට මේ ආණ්ඩුව මාරුලා වෙන ආණ්ඩුවක් ආවනම් ඒගොල්ලන් කියන අපි තමුන්නාන්සලාගේ ඉන්ධන බිල වැඩි කරන්නේ නැහැ කියලා. හරිද? එතකොට ඉන්ධන බිල වැඩි කරන්නේ නැහැ කියලා කියන්නේ පබ්ලික් එක්ස්පෙන්ඩිචර් එක වැඩි වෙනවා. හරිද? විදුලි බිල වැඩි කරන්නේ නැහැ කියන්නේ ඒක වැඩි වෙනවා. හරිද? තව ලක්ෂ 5කට අපි සමෘද්ධි සහන ආධාර දෙනවා කියන්නේ ඒක වැඩි වෙනවා. ඉතින් ඕක මේ අර ග්‍රේ ඒරියා එකක් නේ. කොතනද අපි හරියට හිටගන්නේ? ඒ නිසා තමයි මේ අපේ සභාපතිතුමා ඔය බජට් ඔෆිස් එක හරහා මේවා අපිට මුල් අවධියේදීම කියන්න පුළුවන්. ගවර්න්මන්ට් එකේ what should be the policy priorities. දැන් කවුරු හරි military expenditure අඩු කරන්න කියලා ඒක ඉතාම දේශපාලන වශයෙන් සංවේදී කාරණයක්. ඔව්.
නේද අද මොහොතේ උදාහරණයක් කෝප් එකේ ශ්‍රීජාපුර විශ්වවිද්‍යාල මේ හොස්පිටල් එක වැඩක් නැති ඒකන කතා කරලා
there is no management. No one knows.
කඩලා කඩයක් ඊට වඩා හොඳට මිනිස්සු කරනවා. කඩලා කඩයක්. ඒ කියන්නේ දැන් තියෙන ඉඩ කඩන් ටික ආට පිටාවේ මිනිස්සු අල්ලගෙන.
165ක් අල්ලගෙන. දන්නේ නැහැ.
ඒක ඔය කෝටි ගාණක් වගේ ඉතින් ඒ වගේ නිකන් මම කියන්නේ ඒක ගත්තොත් එහෙම ඊට පස්සේ මේ පබ්ලික් එන්ටර්ප්‍රයිස් එකේ ගිය අවුරුද්දේ 1.2 බිලියන් මේ අවුරුද්දේ 2 බිලියන් මේ කන්ට්‍රිබියුෂන් එක. ඉතින් මෙහෙම ඒ කියන්නේ ඒක අස්පනා අපිට පේනවා ප්‍රොෆිට් කරන්න පුළුවන් යුනිට් එකක්. හැබැයි මේ මොකද ෆයිනෑන්ස් මිනිස්ට්‍රි එකේ මොනිටරින් 0. දැන් අපි බැලුවොත් පබ්ලික් එන්ටර්ප්‍රයිසස් වල හැම තැනම ලොස් එකට අපිට ඒගොල්ලෝ මේ මුදල් අමාත්‍යාංශය කියන ලේසිම උත්තරේ තමයි මම ආවේ ගිය මාසේ එහෙම නැත්නම් මම ආවේ මේ පිට මාසේ ડોක්ටර් you have experience නේ. එතකොට ඉතින් ඒ වගේ දැන් මොකද්ද මේකට දැන් අපි මේ මහන්සි වෙලා කතා කරාට මේක ඩ්‍රයිව් වෙන
නෑ අපිට එක දෙයක් කරන්න පුළුවන්. දැන් උදාහරණයක් හැටියට මන්ත්‍රීතුමා දැන් අපි හිතමු ඉලෙක්ට්‍රිසිටි සෙක්ටර් රිෆෝම් එක. අපිට පබ්ලික් ෆයිනෑන්ස් එකෙන් අපිට පුළුවන් ඩොකියුමන්ට් එකක් ඉදිරිපත් කරන්න දේශපාලන කෝණයකින් බලන්නේ නැතුව මේකේ මේ ධනාත්මක ඍණාත්මක පැති මොනවද? I mean, you know, what Kanchana said yesterday is spot on. What he said is we have to sell it at 56 rupees. Everybody has to buy at 56 rupees. Now, whether the 56 rupees is the right number, I don't know. If there is wastage, corruption, inefficiency, that has to be reduced. So 56 minus some X amount, everyone has to pay. But those people who are below the poverty line or some way in which we can target those people, the government must give them an amount. Now, the sad irony of this whole thing is we are the people who've been saying this for 15 years. Right? I don't mean to bring politics here, Honorable Member. But the other group completely opposed the reforms of the CEB from 2002. The 2002 was when the Electricity Reform Act was brought. Now, between 2002 and 2022, the largest component of losses came from the energy sector, CPC and CEB. So, මම කියන්නේ අපිට වගකීමක් තියෙනවා. මේ කමිටි එක හැටියට I am of course fully willing to put my name and signature as the chairman of this committee to come out with an independent paper on the need for the electricity sector.
Chair, I think with your permission, you brought upon, I think, the very valid epicentric idea. Professionally, you said all those for the last 20 years. But it was a politically motivated group which blocked this whole thing.
Sure.
Right. So therefore, the issue, madam, goes beyond think tank analysis. But whatever we do, it has to be translated. It has to be translated into political understanding of our citizens. And this is exactly where. So how do we do that? If I do that, it will be Raghavan. Ranjit do. So therefore, I think there should be our universities and think tanks like you should be looked at upon. People, right now you all are independent, that you have more interest than producing good reports. But there is a state reform, Rajya, මේ ආණ්ඩු මාරු කරන මගුලක් නෙමෙයි මේ කතා කරන්නේ. රාජ්‍ය ප්‍රතිනිර්මාණය කිරීමේදී recasting the state කියන කතාවේ මොකද ඒක අතිශය දේශපාලන වැඩක්. ඒ දේශපාලන වැඩේ කරන්නට බැරි වෙනවා අපට හරියට ඔයගොල්ලන්ගේ වගේ බුද්ධිමය අයගේ දායකත්වය නිර්දේශපාලනිකව ඉදිරිපත් වුණේ නැත්තම්. මගේ වේදනාව ඒකයි මම කියන්නේ.
My thinking is all this is government policy. No, I have been in the government now nearly 30 years. I had one time the petroleum sector, right? What really happened once the prices go up to very uncontrollable levels, government took a decision to give petroleum fuel rather to a very, very nominal rate to the people. Ultimately, who absorbed the loss? The Petroleum Corporation. When I took over, we managed to, in 2000, managed to get a profit, but our losses are so much in the past. And I thought of bringing this level when the prices are dropping from $120 to when I left it $65. But I want to keep a margin for our corporation so that I can pay back all those. Ultimately, another decision. New government reduced it by 30 rupees. So then whole thing after us went different direction. So all these are political decisions. No one realized that ultimately we will come to this level. Now we have already come to this. We are a bankrupt nation. Now as you said, the decision that now we have to take is very serious.
දැන් අපි එක දෙයක් කරනවා කරු මන්ත්‍රීතුමා අපි අලුත් දේවල් මෙතන උත්සාහ කරනවා අපේ කමිටුවෙන් කරන්න එකක් තමයි ඔබතුමා කියපු ජනතාව දැනුවත් කිරීමේ වැඩපිළිවෙල. දැන් අපි මෙතන තාම එක හරියටම සෙට් වෙලා නැහැ. අපි පාර්ලිමේන්තු මාධ්‍ය කණ්ඩායමත් එක්ක කතා කරනවා අපේ කමිටි එකට මාධ්‍ය කට්ටියක් ඉන්නවා. අපි බලන්නේ මේ විනාඩි 2-3 YouTube වාගේ මේ වීඩියෝස් වාගේ හදලා Public Enterprise, Committee on Public Finance යටතේ පාර්ලිමේන්තුව හරහා මේව ඉදිරිපත් කරන ජනතාවට. දැන් එතකොට හරි මිනිස්සුන්ගේ යම්කිසි අවබෝධයක් තියෙනවා මේ ප්‍රශ්නෙට මොකද්ද කළ යුතු ගත යුතු මේ පියවර කියලා. දැන් ඉලෙක්ට්‍රිසිටි රිෆෝම් එකට රාඝවන් මන්ත්‍රීතුමා මිනිස්සු පාරට බැස්සොත් හරි මිනිස්සු ස්ට්‍රයික් කරොත් ඒක කරගන්න බැරි වුණොත් වැඩේ එතනින්ම බ්ලොක් වෙනවා.
පාරට බහිනවද නැද්ද කියන එක ආර්ථික ප්‍රශ්නයක් නෙමෙයි. මම හිතන්නේ දේශපාලන ප්‍රශ්නයක් නේ ඒක. ඒ නිසා ආර්ථිකය, සමාජ විද්‍යාව, දේශපාලන විද්‍යාව කියන සියලු දේම දවස් අවසානයේදී රාජ්‍ය නිර්මාණයේදී සිදුවිය යුත්තේ
Now you have another avenue, no? The parliamentary group. No, parliamentary group. You here within the parliamentary group, you can discuss this, no?
ඩොක්ටර් ගෝගේ awareness එක බාර බොහොම පොඩි තැනක තියෙන්නේ.
නෑ මම කියන්නේ මෙහෙමනේ. ජනතාව තේරුම් ගන්න ඕනේ ඇයි රිෆෝම් අවශ්‍ය කියන එක. හරි, you have to sell reform. Selling reform is difficult. හරි, ගොඩක් වෙලාවට market reform. ගොඩක් වෙලාවට reform එක market කරන්නේ නැති නිසා තමයි reform එක පස්ස ගහන්නේ. උදාහරණයක් ඇරෙන්න 2002 reform agenda එක සම්පූර්ණයෙන්ම reverse වුණානේ. මොකද ඒ රිෆෝම්
සභාවතුමා ඒකට ලංකාවේ ට්‍රේඩ් යුනියන් බලපෑව හරියට. මට ට්‍රේඩ් යුනියන් කෙලින්ම පටන් ගත්තාම වැඩ නවත්තන්න හදනවා. ඔක ලොකු ප්‍රශ්නයක් නේ. ආණ්ඩු කැමති වුණ නෑ මේ වැඩේට අත ගහන්න. නෝ. මේ ඔයා මොනවද කියන්නේ 94 මං ඇවිල්ලා 96 මොකක් හරි තීන්දුවක් අරගෙන ඒක රත්වත් ඇමතුමා මුළු ලංකාවෙම මේ ලයිට් ඔෆ් කළා සුමානයක් තිබුණා. මිනිස්සු නෑවේ මේ දියවන්න ඔය. ඔයා දන්නවනේ ඊට පස්සේ බේර ගන්න බැරුව කවුරුත් කතා කරා අපි മന്ത്രിවරු අලුත් മന്ത്രിවරු ඇවිල්ලා මේ හොයන ආමියකින් දැන් පොලිසිය දාලා ඉන්ජිනියර්ස්ලා ගෙන්නුවා මෙතන ඉස්සරහා රෑ 7ට මේ ඔය ඩලස්ලා අපි එකතු වෙලා ඔව් මේ මෙතන ඔය මේ පාර්ලිමේන්තු මේකට ගාලා බිම වාඩි වෙලා කතා කරුවා පැය ගානක් කතා කළා ඉවර කරේ.
මොඩල් එකක් හදමු මොකද දන්නවද
නැත්නම් මෙතුමා කියන එක ඇත්ත දැන් තමයි අපිට රිෆෝම් ඇජෙන්ඩා එකක් විකුණන්න පුළුවන්.
සාමාන්‍ය මිනිස්සුන්ගේ අදහසකුත් තියෙන මේ අපේ හම්බ කරන සල්ලි ටික මේ අනවශ්‍ය විදියට මේ ආයතන වලට වියදම් කරන අතර අර කිව්වා වගේ
ඒක තමයි මෙතන දේශපාලන යම් කිසි සංහිඳියාවක් තියෙන්න ඕනේ. උදාහරණයක් විදිහට 1991 ඉන්දියාවේ රිෆෝම් එක පටන් ගත්තාම ඉන්දියාව ඕල්මෝස්ට් බැංක්‍රප්ට් වුණාම අර හොඳ පොතක් තියෙනවා කියවන්න බෑක් ස්ටේජ් කියලා මොන්ටෙක් සිං අලුවාලිය ලියලා තියෙන පිටු 400 විතර පොතක් his experience. එතුමා ඇවිල්ලා කොහොමද behind the scene වැඩ කරේ කියලා. හරි. ඒ පොතේ තියෙනවා කොහොමද කියලා මේ නරසිම්හ රාව තමයි අගමැති හිටියේ. හරි, ඊට පස්සේ අගමැතිලා 4-5 දෙනෙක්ම හිටියේ. I mean IP ගුජරාල් ඒ කට්ටිය ඔක්කොම ආව. නමුත් ආණ්ඩු පක්ෂයයි විපක්ෂයයි යම්කිසි එකඟතාවයකට ආවා කොයි જાතිය රිෆෝම්ද කරන්න පුළුවන් කියලා. ඒක doesn't mean that there is no debate. There has to be debate. හරි ජනතාවට රිෆෝම් වලින් ඍණාත්මකව බලපානකොට ඒ සම්බන්ධයෙන් හිට ගන්න ඕනේ විපක්ෂය ඒ සම්බන්ධයෙන් කතා කරන්න ඕනේ උද්ඝෝෂණය කරන්න ඕනේ ඒ ප්‍රශ්න ගේන්න ඕනේ ජනතාවගේ දුක පිළිබඳව කතා කරන්න ඕනේ හැබැයි ඒක කරන අතරේ අර රිෆෝම් එක ඉස්සරහට යන්න ඕනේ කියන මේ මතේ ඉන්න ඕනේ ඒක තමයි ඉන්දියාව එදා ඉඳන් අද වෙනකන් රිෆෝම් කරලා දිගින් දිගටම රිෆෝම් කරලා අද සෑහෙන හොඳ තැනකට ඇවිල්ලා
ඔය ජාතික සභාවෙන් බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන්නේ ඒක නෙවෙයිද?
අන්න පුළුවන් කියලා මොකද අවයර්නස් එක පැත්තෙන් දැන් මොකද ලාස්ට් වීක් අපි ඉන්දියන් හයි කමිෂනර් හම්බුනාම පස්සේ එයා ඒගොල්ලන්ට අමාරුම කෑල්ලත් ඒගොල්ලෝ ප්‍රයිවටයිස් කරා කියලා සැටලයිට් එක මේ කියන්නේ ටෙලිකොමියුනිකේෂන් සැටලයිට් කම්ප්ලීට්ලි ප්‍රයිවටයිස් කරා කියලා කිව්වා. ඒ කියන්නේ ලාස්ට් වීක් අපි හම්බුනාම ඒ තැනට ඒගොල්ලෝ රැඩිකල් ඩිසිෂන් ගත්තා මිනිස්සු බොහොම හොඳට ඒක ඇක්සෙප්ට් කරලා දිනවල දැන්
even Modi was not able to do all the reforms he had to roll back the farmers the agriculture reforms not everything has gone through but to a fair extent the reform agenda is progressing.
Chairman, with your permission,
Yes,
I think this is the high time to have reforms because we are stuck in the deep and that's what like people their perception has changed a lot but the reforms must be very transparent. So we have to ensure that if we are going to sell our public properties, it should be sell in a very transparent manner. So from that we can have a platform and we can say this is the guidelines which we have to come up with, especially when it comes to SLIC. The way they have sold earlier 6,000 rupees per perch. So we can have a guideline on that. Okay, we know that we have to come to we have to have these kind of reforms because we are stuck. So we have to sell something which profitable as well. There are arguments, but anyway that we must have a kind of like this is a high time. So from our group we can have kind of
just because I want them to continue with their presentations and then we can ask questions if you don't mind after they
I have questions.
Right, okay.
That is the main point actually we want to make is that the policy agenda implied by the government is not exactly in line the way the budget is allocated, especially for the important sectors. They have mentioned factor market reforms, education, health, digital technology, private sector-led, modern, export-oriented, competitive economy. Although they have mentioned those things, the budgets are not allocated. But those are important sectors if you want to get out of this.
So what you can do is give us an executive summary of this, right? Which we can table and we can get it in the Hansard. So what this report is, right? So just a page and like Honorable Raghavan mentioned, have a section on perhaps what can be done, right? What you as IPS believe that is appropriate at this point in time, and that we will get it in the Hansard.
Yeah. Right? At the same time, Chairman,
because
I think we believe we must have this Single and Tamil as well.
No, it's coming.
That's okay.
It's coming. It's been translated.
Because we are not, I believe we are not judges of our life. The future will judge us. So I respect your agency so much. I have absolutely, there are few agencies that I respect like you. So I want you to be written as a historical agency which has done their part. Just before I leave on Honorable Dalawatha's response, because I think Honorable Sumandran is a champion of this. When the Sri Lanka insurance was privatized, he went out and taken back. But today, what is the situation? Last 4 years, insurance corporation asset base is $1 billion. Their profit is $38 million, which is only 3.8 of the total ROI level. But what is South Asia's entire life insurance, South Asia's life insurance alone, what is the market? $9 trillion. Insurance is one that you can insure your specs, your pen, your computer, everything. But what have we done with this? And even with that 1 billion asset base, the 38 million income that they have got is 80% government business. If you take that away, this agency will collapse like a dead dinosaurs. Therefore, we need transparent reforms. There is no questions about it. So, some of them MPs, particularly of the left leaning, will say, don't do this. But when I ask them, do you know how industry, life insurance alone had changed, they have little idea. That's why the education is important, Chairman.
ඒක තමයි දැන් ඇත්තටම දැන් මේ සමාජයේ දැන් අපිට ඇත්තට අපේ තියෙන වගකීමකුත් තියෙනවා දැන් අද කතා කරන්නේ ඉන්ෂුරන්ස් එකයි ටෙලිකොම් එකයි විතර නමුත් මේ අපේ පබ්ලික් එන්ටර්ප්‍රයිසස් තියෙනවා 400 ගාණක් බැලුවට පස්සේ කෝප් එකේ මිනිස්සු දැක්ක මිනිස්සු කියන්නේ මේවා තියාගන්න එපා මහා අපරාධ කියලා සමාජයේ අද මහා පුළුල් කතාවක් තියෙනවා නමුත් අද මේක අපි හැමෝමත් පාර්ලිමේන්තු එක බැලුවත් ටීවී ඩිබේට් වලට ගියත් මේ කාරණා දෙක තුන විතරයි ප්ලැට්ෆෝම් එකේ අපි ඩිබේට් කරන්නේ. හැබැයි අපි මේ සම්පූර්ණ මේ සීන් එක මේ මුනුස් මේ සමස්තයම අද ජනතාව ඉන්නෝ එතන. ඉතින් අපි මේ දෙකේ එල්ලිලා දැන් මොකද මම දැක්ක විදිහට අද අපි මේ මෙතර එල්ලිලා නතර වෙලා තියෙනනේ මේ ටෙලිකොම් එකේ මේ ඉන්ෂුරන්ස් එකේ. ඉතින් එතනින් එහාට මම අද හිතුවේ තීරණය කර
ඒකෙත් එල්ලිලා හිටලා අප්පා වෙන්නේ
ඔව්.
නැහැ. එල්ලිලා විතරයි.
ඔව්. ඉතින් ඒක නිසා අපි ඇත්තටම දැන් මේ මොකද දැන් මම දැක්කේ අද මේ ජයවර්ධන මේ හොස්පිටල් එක අනිවාර්යෙන් ප්‍රයිවටයිස් කරා. ඒ කියන්නේ ඒක දැන් ප්‍රයිවටයිස් කියන මොඩල් එක මං හිතන්නේ මහා අපරාධයක් ඒක. එතන මම හිතනවා $1 බිලියන් මේ ඉන්කම් එකක් ගන්න පුළුවන් මේ හරියට අපි මේ රීජන් එකේ ඔපචුනිටි එක
ඒක පාලනය කරන්න සුදුසු
නෑ අද ඒගොල්ලෝ කතා කරා කොහෙල් කන්සල්ටන්ට්ලා ඔක්කොම ගෙන්නුවාද?
It's good that at least in this committee there is consensus that this is the way to proceed.
මම නම් මගේ ජීවිත කාලේ පුරාම මේක කියෝ හිටියා. හැමදාම මට ධනවාදියා කියලා මාව අපේ කණ්ඩායම පිසිකිරුවා. මම අදහස් කරේ ඕක බොහොම කාලයකට කලින්. මම ඔයා කියන්න දෙන හැමෝටම කම
නෑ මිනිස්සු අද ඉන්නවා මොකද මිනිස්සුන්ට අද මේ විනාශ වෙලා තියෙන මේ නිකන් අනවශ්‍ය රාජ්‍ය ආයතන ටිකක් නඩත්තු කරන්න යවලා අපේ සල්ලි වේදම් කරනවා කියන එක තමයි මිනිස්සු
ආණ්ඩුවක් බලයට ආවම සභාපතිතුමා පත් කරනවා.
අපි ඒතර මොකද්ද දැන් අපි ඉඳගෙන අපි මොකක් හරි පොඩි ප්‍රෝග්‍රෑම් එකක් හදමු අපි
අපි හැමෝටම නෑ මම හිතන්නේ අද මේකේ
present this report first no
Yes.
the parliament so
Yeah.
are we on agreement?
I mean,
no problem, no?
there's no issue there.
The analysis is okay.
Yeah,
But the as you said, an executive summary.
yeah.
Just to spell out, the whole thing is whether the allocations are in line with the policy. No, I can't see whether it is or it is not. I mean, just merely giving the analysis. You have to make a judgment call on that.
So that is what we wanted them to do. So because
Otherwise, it's all lost in this maze of figures and graphs and all that.
Can I just make a
Yeah.
response, Honorable MP? That was discussed at the outset. Because of the nature of this current appropriation bill, there is no basis for comparison. We can't compare with previous year. We can just
No. Comparison is with the budget speech.
So budget speech, that's why they have reference to putting a committee to study this or committee to study that, but there is no allocations.
No, the problem is that there wasn't anything in the budget speech.
No, there is no money to allocate anywhere.
There's
That
nothing
is
called
a
a
problem.
budget speech this time. Yeah.
so that is what we will do. So we will just table get in the Hansard and executive summary. So please do that. So we'll have to get it translated.